Aces. Oh, my lads, you should have seen them running. Asked them why and they replied the Bolton boys are coming. All the lads and lasses, smiles upon their faces, walking down the Manny Road to see the Burnden Aces. Lads, you should have seen them running. Asked them why and they replied the Bolton boys are coming. All the lads and lasses, smiles upon their faces, walking down the Manny Road to see the Burnden Aces. Oh, my lads, you should have seen them running. Asked them why and they replied the Bolton boys are coming. All the lads and lasses, smiles upon their faces, we're walking down the Manny Road to see the Burnden Aces.
Hello there and welcome back to Wanderers Weekly, a new look channel dedicated to all things Bolton Wanderers, hosted by yours truly. Now we'll be bringing you reaction from Wanderers fans and pundits alike on a weekly basis, as well as exclusive interviews with former players and Bolton Wanderers legends. You may have seen on social media recently that we've got Mark Fish on the show next week and Super John McGinley as well in a couple of weeks' time, which should be great. Now, a massive thanks once again to Bolton-based band the Jade Assembly for allowing us to use their track Burnden Aces, which you've just heard, of course, as the official soundtrack here at Wanderers Weekly. Now, while we're on the subject of thank yous, we'd like to thank you, the viewers, for all the fantastic support following last week's debut episode. So, kicking things off very soon, I'll be joined by Bolton News' Wanderers expert Marc Iles. Now, Mark, of course, covers every single Bolton Wanderers game live, as well as reporting on things Bolton Wanderers on and off the pitch. During the course of tonight's show, please don't forget to get involved using the live chat feature on YouTube, Wanderers fans. So without further ado, let's bring Mark in, shall we? Hello, Mark. First and foremost, thanks for joining us here at Wanderers Weekly. I hope you're keeping well, mate.
Yes, keeping all the better thanks to this afternoon's result or last night's result. I don't know how we're referring to it, Tom.
So yeah, it's been a successful month or so for the lads, let's say, maintaining that great run of form, securing more recent wins over Cambridge United and Port Vale prior to yesterday's win over Walsall, which we'll touch on very shortly. Stretching our unbeaten run to 12 matches. That's quite some feat considering how we started the season.
Chalk and cheese, isn't it, really? I think we were all expecting to kind of write off this season and be talking about building again for next year and giving the manager time to get his feet under the table. But since the end of January in the business they did, really, and since they switched formations and such, like, it's been like covering a different club and watching a different club in action. Certainly, it's been a pleasure to watch from the press box.
So let's start with yesterday's win over Walsall, the University of Bolton Stadium, Mark. In comparison to the Port Vale performance, it was quite a similar contest in terms of it was a below par first half performance. I mean, the last two games we've sort of struggled to get out of the gate early, and then we've come out firing in the second half of both of those games. It was a lacklustre first half. They took the lead. You could say I was giving the ball away in midfield, and then he's hit the ball from 25 yards, and it's gone in. But we didn't really create much moving forward. But at half time, the gaffers obviously got them in, had time to assess things and look at the areas in the pitch they can improve on, and we did. And fair play to the boys for coming back into the game.
Yeah, I thought first half Walsall's press was really good. They minimised the amount of space. They didn't give the Bolton defenders Santos and Baptiste any time on the ball, which they like to have. The space on the pitch, they just couldn't find it, really. And interestingly, I think Ian Evatt, for the last 5 minutes of the first half, went up into the stands to kind of get a better view of what was going on. And obviously, whatever he said at half-time did the trick, because second half, I think Delfonso dropped a little bit deeper, got more involved. There was better link-up play. They got in behind Walsall a bit more. And, once they got back on level terms, I knew they weren't going to lose the game. But I think once the sending off came about, it really did tip it in their favour. They were able to find that extra space and get the second goal.
Yeah, before the game, a few Wanderers fans were thinking, what team are we going to line up with today with no Anthony Sarcevic available due to injury? Who would come in? And obviously Lloyd Isgrove sat right in there and did a great job.
Yeah, I think you know what you're going to get with Lloyd Isgrove. I think he works really hard, especially out of possession. the way that Bolton like to counter press, and if they do lose possession, they've got to be on it in a flash, and his club is very good at doing that. I think there are aspects of his game, that maybe frustrate a little bit. Attacking wise, I think his final ball can be a little bit hit and miss. But no, I like Izzy. I think he's a busy player, and I could completely see why they put him in instead of Zarcevic, or instead of like a Madison or somebody like a that would be a more direct kind of version. But no, I mean, Isgrove had a decent game for me today.
Let's touch a bit on Kieran Lee. He obviously came under fire a bit in the first half when he gave the ball away, which obviously led to their goal. He come under fire a bit, but from his point of view, he must have gone in at half-time disappointed, know that he could have done better to prevent the goal, but then to score the equaliser, and then obviously he was involved in the penalty decision, which led to Owen Doyle's match winner. So he really did turn things around from a personal perspective as well as the team winning.
Yeah, it was terrific, really. I think first half, I think him and Williams, I think a little bit static. I don't think either of them had a great first half. And as you say, with the goal, Lee, he lost control of the ball, I think, rather than giving it away. But he was quite slow to close the lad down who hit the strike really, really well. It was a good goal in the end. But to respond in the way that he did, second half, he absolutely covered every single blade of grass. I just looked over the stats before I came on, and I think he ended up with about 91% possession over the game, which is phenomenal, really. He always covers a lot of ground. His running stats are incredible. So he goes about his business in a very unfussy, unflashy way. He doesn't grab too many headlines. He doesn't do too many interviews. He's not like a flashy headline type of guy, really. But I think if you ask any Sheffield Wednesday player who the best player for them in the last 5 or 6 years has been, he would feature very highly on those lists. He's just one of those players that's a steady 7 out of 10 every week.
At the start of the second half, you could definitely see that equaliser coming. I mean, Dapo Afolayan had a few great chances. It came very close twice. And Ricardo Santos, just prior to the equaliser, came very close. But when Lee did score that equaliser, there was a calm amongst the group, and it was like we really grew back into the game with about 20 minutes to go. The red card to Hayden White most certainly changed the complexion of the contest. A moment of madness, really, where he's raised his hand, and you can't do that at this level without getting a red card. It really did cost Walsall. As Wanderers were on top at that point, just got the equaliser, were really sensing that build-up in momentum, and then the red card just gave us a free hit.
It was a bit daft, really. I mean, I have just watched that again as well, and yeah, he puts his hands up, and there's not a great deal in it, if truth be told. But these days, if you put your hands on somebody, that's red card straight away, really. And whilst I felt a little bit for him because there was nothing, horrible about what he did, it was. You can't really complain too much in this day and age. And then when you're a man down, of course, against a team like Bolton that shifts the ball as well as they were doing, and their tails were up at that point in time as well. You could only see the game really ending one way. Even though I thought the last sort of 2 or 3 minutes in going into injury time and such like were a bit more nervy than they had any right to be. And I was a little bit anxious towards the end when you start seeing the goalkeeper coming up for free kicks and such like, because it seemed to be one of those days where they just kept on giving away those set pieces around their own half, and Walsall needed no kind of invitation to chuck the ball in the area, did they?
Yeah, let's speak about them more. I mentioned the red card there. I watched it. I was listening to the commentary with Derek, and he was saying that he was refusing to leave the pitch at one point. He had his top off, and he was rubbing with the referee, refusing to come off. And then obviously you mentioned the keeper coming off and dying embers of the game. Now, what about that booking for simulation in the box when a different day, different official, that could have been given as a penalty if they've caught it the wrong angle.
Yeah, heart in mouth moments, rather, as easy for me to say. I'm only on a cup of tea, I promise. Yeah, I mean, earlier in the season, we said this, we chatted with Ricardo Santos after the final whistle, and he said, earlier in the season, that's going to be a penalty. It's the way that things were going for Bolton. When you're down there, you don't get that little bit of luck that sometimes you need. I my initial reaction was, oh God, I hope there's not a decision to make there. But obviously the referee's got a better view of that, and I have to compliment the referee. I thought he was very, very good on the day. He stayed very strong. When you hear when you hear that live, there was a big scream, and obviously there's a big appeal from the Walsall bench. So as much as I suppose if there was a big away end that would have been up asking for that penalty, you've got to stay strong in either circumstance, and the referee was really good on that today.
Yeah, there was a couple of substitutions ready to be made just prior to the equaliser. Al Badesi and Arthur Gunnar were set to come onto the pitch just seconds before the equaliser, but then the gaffer sort of changed his mind completely, abolished that double change, and obviously they came on 15, 20 minutes later. But what did you make of that decision to not bring them on at that point?
Yeah, I felt a bit. I mean, I joked to Ian after it. This is, your substitutions are that good, you don't even have to make them anymore. I think just the appearance of those two players, the next break in play was going to be a substitution. So maybe, the likes of Delphonso or Isco just thought, right, hey, I best do something here. And actually at that point, the game sort of stepped up a gear and they raised the tempo and obviously got the goal, and Paul Zach and such like got told to sit back down again. But that's the beauty of the team at the minute, is that there are those options on the bench, and that if you don't have a good game and he makes that substitution and the substitute plays well, you might not be in again for several games, because earlier in the season you could probably pick 2 or 3 players that you knew were going to be in the team. The other 8, it was like a lottery, because form didn't really come into it. Nobody was really playing their way into the team. Now you've got a good 10, 11 every single week. He's got good options on the bench, and any permutation, particularly in that front 4, is dangerous. And he's able to sort of look at opponents and analyse weaknesses and pick the team according to how he feels like the game will go, as opposed to just picking whoever might be in form or somewhere near it.
Yeah, there's a massive competition for places. I mean, we've still got Dennis Politic, obviously suffering with a long-term injury at the moment. Ronan Darcy as well to come back.
Yeah.
Obviously, I heard Wanderers fans all afternoon shouting, "Let's get Madison on at the perfect time to get him on." Even a player of his quality, you can't just walk into the team. He's got to work for that opportunity. Yeah.
I mean, with Madison, I think his early performances haven't been up to scratch. I think that's fair to say. I think he's got to work really hard to get to the numbers on the training ground, possibly for Ian Evatt to say, yes, you're worth a starting place. But yeah, like you say, there's no easy shirts being given out now, and that's good. It's brought on a competition across the squad. You've got people like Andy Tutt that have been sat there kicking his heels, and he's barely done anything wrong. George Thomas, and I know he got a little bit of time towards the end of the game today. He's done barely anything wrong to be out that team. It just so happens that certain other players kind of suit what he wants at this moment in time. But yeah, I mean, it's a strong squad, and they're all going to be needed. There's 10 games left, and that's plenty of time left for people to change things around and get in the team.
So as you always do, Mark, you managed to catch up with Ian Evatt after the final whistle today. I believe he was optimistic about winning the game, even with the lads trailing in the final 25 minutes. He was still optimistic and adamant that we can go on and win the game. Yeah.
Well, that's with a bit of hindsight as well, by the way. But yeah, it's all very well after you've won the game coming up and saying that. But no, I felt today he earned his money, Ian Evatt, because as I mentioned earlier, to go up in the stands, to look at a slightly different angle, to go into the dressing room at halftime and say, this is what we're doing wrong, this is where you need to be. And straight after halftime, you saw that improvement. You'd like, and I think probably Ian Evatt would like, the players to be identifying that themselves on the pitch and to kind of affect that before he has to do it himself. But, he's gone in at half-time, he's done the right things, he had the substitutions ready in case. And that's where, a manager lives and dies. He's getting results because, he's doing the hard work in preparation and the decisions he's making. Every substitution he makes at the minute seems to result in some sort of positive effect, whether it be a goal or an assist or, an improved performance. It's all working out really well for him at the minute.
Yeah, I was listening to his post-match interview with the club, and he was saying that the players didn't really sort of exploit the spaces in the first half that they possibly could have done, and it took him to get them in at half time to explain to them where the spaces are, and they certainly did that in the second half.
Yeah, it was more number 10, kind of Nathan and the two wide men that were not quite picking up where he wanted them to be. Yeah, the football, the system that he's playing, it's complex. There's no two ways about it. He's seeing, his game plan is a very modern one. It's taking me a long time to get my head wrapped around it, to be honest. let alone most other people that don't see them from a press box every week. But it's working, gradually. I mean, we saw it. I thought in pre-season when I looked at the players, you could tell something different was happening. It was exciting. You could tell what he wanted to do. It was starting to evolve, and I thought, well, great stuff. But then the whole thing just got knocked out of them with the start they made. We obviously discussed recruitment problems and things like that. He didn't really have the tools for the job. But to be able to change that in mid-season in the way he did, bring in the players he did in January, suddenly he has got the players that know how to play the system he wants to play. And it's such an exciting brand of football when they get it right, that if they get it right on a regular basis, it's going to be an absolute pleasure covering Bolton Wanderers and sitting and watching that week in, week out.
I mentioned there about our 12-game unbeaten run with 7 clean sheets in that impressive run. So just how important is the defensive impact, obviously, moving forward? We have an attacking side with a high press, but on a defensive point of view, we've been mightily impressive in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say in this run is that there's not been many occasions where they really have been examined defensively. They've had to keep concentration. Chances have been few and far between, and that in itself is a skill. It's something they weren't doing earlier in the season. I think next weekend when they go to Forest Green, that will be a thorough examination. Santos is playing out of his skin. Let's face it. He's defending so confidently. I think a lot of that is down to Jilks behind him, talking him through games, and Baps beside him, talking him through. He said as much after the game today to us that those two really had him on strings really, and his improvement is very much down to the advice he's taken on board from more experienced players. Baptiste looks a different player, doesn't he? All of a sudden, he's doing the simple things right, and that's what he's built a career out of, just being a consistent kind of defender. And then you've got your two lads either side, the flying wing backs that they've been fantastic, but everywhere, it's all working out. The whole team defends well. That's the truth, and that counter press that Ian Evatt likes to play. It's organised, it's drilled. It's not by accident, and it's good to watch.
Yeah, I think that back four now is pretty much set in stone. Obviously, it was great. It was great for Jones to score last week. Gethin Jones obviously got on the score sheet. I've been really impressed with Declan John. His creativity is fantastic. And let's just touch a bit more on Santos and Baptiste. Obviously, Santos he's in the Sky Bet League 2 Team of the Week almost every week now. Both of him and Baptiste seem to be forming a great partnership there in the heart of the Wanderers back line. But Santos is an absolute beast of a centre-half, isn't he? He's so strong. He just out-muscles everybody.
Yeah. We were joking today. I don't think there's an area of the pitch that he couldn't see the ball out of play. He is so strong. You'd back him in a fight. And I thought if they needed to kill some times towards the end, I don't know why they don't just stick him near the corner flag and just challenge anybody to get the ball off him, because I don't think there was a person on the pitch that would have managed it today. But a lot of it's confidence. It's the same player that was struggling in the first 6-8 weeks of the season. And, at that point in time, he was getting absolute pelters from the fans, from the press, from everybody, really. I think even from Ian Evatt at times, that concentration wasn't there. He was taking risks and they weren't coming off. Now, all of a sudden, he can do a drag back on halfway and people are applauding him because it's coming off, and he's looking like a superstar all of a sudden. He's pinging 60, 80-yard balls left, right, and centre. He's come out of his shell. He's leading better. But as I said before, a lot of that is down to the kind of the talking through the game from the goalkeeper and from Alex Baptiste.
I was going to say, I'll cast you back to the Salford City game at the Uniball. We beat them 2-0. When Matt Jukes was in goal, you could just tell the impact that he had on the rest of the team from a vocal point of view, especially. You can hear him even on the TV when I was watching the game. You can hear him on his own just shouting and barking orders out. He's a great person to have, not only in the position he plays in, but away from that as well.
Yeah. I mean, you hear Derek commentating behind me in the press box, but you hear Gillowart on the pitch commentating, and between the two of them, they give me earache, I've got to say. Santos joked today, actually, when he goes to bed, he can still hear the goalkeeper in his head, kind of the echoes of him talking, and it's become kind of the soundtrack to lockdown football at Bolton, because all you hear is jokes, head it out, press, get out, get in, so second ball, all this kind of football jargon speak that the goalkeeper comes out with. But it's helped those players kind of feel their way back into the season. As you say, that Salford game was such an important result because it showed that Bolton could compete with the so-called better teams in the division, and they went on a good run from there. But I think those players that were struggling for confidence at the start of the season owe a lot to Gilks, because he has talked them through in very simple terms every single game. And if nothing else, you can just listen to him and know where you are on the pitch, because it helps him get through the game and it helps other players as well.
Yeah, we spoke there about, obviously, prior to yesterday, Walsall were on a really poor run of form heading into that game. But complacency is something that's very easy to get carried away with, isn't it? I mean, Ian Evatt is very level-headed in the sense that he doesn't get carried away with form or statistics, treating each game as a cup final, essentially. And especially in the first hour of yesterday's game, did we underestimate the opposition, or did they just make the most of Wanderers' below-par spell, do you reckon?
No, I thought Walsall played very well. I think you've got to give them a little bit of credit. I think their press was excellent. You're not going to keep that for a whole game and 90 minutes, not unless you're Manchester City or Liverpool with world-class athletes. I think it was always going to be the case that they would play that certain way, and Bolton would hopefully tire them out and find some spaces later on, as it sort of turned out. That's going to be the part of the course. I think there's going to be quite a lot of first halves like that at Bolton, where teams will come in, try and upset the rhythm, sit in and try and hit on the break. And it's down to Bolton to start, unpicking that lock and finding those spaces. And the faster they can do that, and the more intelligence they can show on the pitch to do that before the manager has to give them that input at half time, the better results are going to get, and the faster they'll be able to make those breakthroughs.
A bit more on the gaffer Ian Evatt and his work ethic. Even when the lads were struggling to pick up points at the start of the campaign, Evatt remained adamant that his work ethic, his hard graft and methodical analysis would come to fruition. And yes, we're on a great run and inside the top six, but from the gaffer's perspective, the hard work must continue game by game heading into those final 10 games, or as he's referred to, those 10 cup finals we've got to play.
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting journey that Ian Evatt's been on, because people forget he's a young manager. This is his first big job. I know Barrow had great success at Barrow, but there wasn't the same scrutiny that there is as a Bolton Wanderers manager, and the big fan base and the press and such. So he's found out quite a bit about himself, and I think he will probably say eventually that, certainly if they get to where I think they're going to go, and that's go up. But I think he will say he probably made a few mistakes at the start of the season in terms of the kind of the bravado that he showed early on, the kind of predictions he was talking about promotion very early on. And I think that the way that things have gone in the last few weeks have shown that he's kind of learned that lesson and thought, no, Joe, I need to dial this down. In-house, I know he's extremely confident, and I know that he thinks that team can go up, and the players are showing that for him. But I think outwardly, he's dialed it down a little bit. He's keeping all the emotions in check. He's doing a great job on that, and that's the way to be. I think you can't get too high, too low. As a manager, I think you've got to try and be as stable as possible. And there's loads of lessons he's learned, I think, in this year. But I've been mightily impressed with him. He's been a joy to work with.
So theoretically, Mark, 10 cup finals to play with automatic promotion, a realistic target. If we can keep up those high levels of intensity week in, week out, we'll be right in the mix, I reckon, come May the 18th.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they've given themselves a really, really good shot. I think they're probably ahead of the curve now, really. Points off automatic promotion now next week at Forest Green. If they win that game, then theoretically they'll be in the top 3. So, yeah, I think, and once you're there, there's different pressures, I suppose. But you look at that running, and there are tough games. The Salfords, there's Exeter, and obviously Forest Green as well. Newport as well will be a tough test. But I think, particularly on the home games, there are a lot of winnable games there. So quietly confident that they'll get. Well, I'm quietly confident they get automatic promotion now, if I'm being truthful. So it's up to them to kind of keep it up. Can they go the whole rest of the season unbeaten? I think they could, but I don't think they're going to have to necessarily to go up.
I'd like to touch a bit on the new club ownership, the more recent club ownership, if I could, Mark. They played a massive part. They've played a massive part in the club's more recent good fortunes. Their continuous hard graft behind the scenes, the patience and the support they've shown to Ian Evatt, even during the tough times at the start of the season. And with the club enduring those torturous couple of years, which you've been there, you've been through all the court cases and the possible liquidation, and there's a degree of excitement now around the club. After those bad times, they're sort of in the past now. There's a lot of excitement around the football club now, and it must be great for you. Obviously, you're there week in, week out. You've been through the bad times now. It's all about enjoying these good times now.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm a firm believer that good things happen to good people, and I think Sharon's been front and centre, obviously, but I think that the whole board, Mike James and the rest of the football ventures people like Andy Gartside that have come in, they've just given the place a bit of stability, and they're good people. The people that were working there, the people that had to go to a food bank, the people that didn't get paid for months on end, they're suddenly, they feel respected by the club again. And that's where the big difference has been. That's why the place is better, because suddenly it feels more like the club that I kind of started covering so many years ago. And, that the Reebok used to feel like it was a separate town. There's so many people there. They lived in this kind of Wanderers bubble, the Republic of Bolton Wanderers type of thing. But steadily, through just utter mismanagement, it became such a difficult place to be because people were so unhappy. And it's taken them some time to get that right. And it's taken them, it's not been easy because obviously you're in the middle of a pandemic as well. They can't do what they'd like to do, I don't think, at the moment. But just from being reliable, just for, being respectful to people, having a chat with staff and that kind of stuff, it's a different place to work. And I think when we get out of this bloody mess of a pandemic and things get back to some degree of normality, I'm really looking forward to see what the next step is. Can they get out there and bring people back and convince people that the football's a place they want to be on a Saturday and that kind of thing, and really start building the club back up again to where it belongs and where it should be.
As I said before, you've been there for years now. You've been there through the bad times and the good times, but the facilities at the club have always been the same. The excellent media facilities they've got there at the club. But when opposing teams come to the Uniball, they must be thinking, "Wow, what they compared to what facilities they've got at some other clubs, they must be thinking it's so luxurious." I mean, the hotel on the stadium and everything else. I know that the opposing players have been coming out of the hotel entrance when they walk onto the pitch. So that must be, walking through the backstage of the Uniball must be a weird feeling for them.
I'm not so sure that Hayden White would have appreciated the walk on the way back, to be truthful. But yeah, I mean, look, I've covered football at every level, and not every club is lucky enough to have what Bolton Wanderers have got. That's for certain. People always look at the stadium, and then it is a Premier League class stadium. Yes, it's showing its age a little bit. It needs a bit of TLC. Compared to its Premier League pomp, but inherently it's still a Premier League stadium, and the training ground is very, very good. They keep the the grounds are excellent. And the media facilities are great, even though people always complain about how many stairs there are on the way up there. But the one thing I will say is that I wish we could have some tea that's warm at halftime. That's one thing I'll complain about. Because for whatever reason, I don't know why this is, and this is going back to Premier League days, they haven't found how to serve a warm cup of tea at halftime at Bolton Wanderers. It's an absolute mystery to me.
So obviously a bit on the skipper, Anthony Sarcevic, Mark. A huge loss in terms of his influence on and off the pitch, but on a positive note, an opportunity for those fringe players vying for a starting spot to showcase what they're about and grasp any opportunity they get. And obviously it was Lloyd Isgrove this afternoon, but there were so many players there on the cusp of getting into the first team who are still waiting for that big chance. Yeah,
I was gutted for Sarcevic because he just started to show that kind of level of football again. Having been out for a few weeks, that performance against Cambridge was outstanding. And he's a good guy as well. You want him in the camp type thing when things are going well. Hopefully, it's not a season ender for him and that he can get back in. But as we said before, there's options there. Madison's still got a lot to prove. That could happen. You've got Delfonso that's played in that 10 role today. I do like him in that role. And second half, he was really good today. So, I think that's the option they use. Isgrove can go, at any position on that 3, whether it be the 10 or either side, and you're going to get hard work from him. You've got, Arthur that is more of your out and out direct winger. Miller can play in that position as well. He can play as a withdrawn striker. So there's loads and loads and loads of options there. El Bazadi as well, who came on. I thought he was great the other week as well. He's very good in sort of tight situations. He's got quick feet. He's actually deceptively fast as well. So, there's half a dozen players that could replace Sarcevic, and that's not including Thomason as well. So, and Darcy. I would just say just listing potential replacements for Sarcevic. Spend half an hour assessing all the options, but the squad's got decent depth about it now. Particularly if you're going to lose anybody in any position, that's probably the one you'd want. But not that you don't feel bad for Sars, I suppose.
Yeah, a player who I really admire is Harry Brockbank. As mentioned, during the bad times, he was obviously skipper during those drubbings we had in all those difficult times that we had. But he's again on the cusp of getting to the first team. Definitely a player for the future and possibly even a future captain. I know he's been a captain at senior level before, but maybe he's one for the future to captain the club and bring the club forward.
It'd be a fantastic story if Rocky can push on and make it. I think, I used to speak to Phil Parkinson regularly about him when he was just coming through, and he really liked his attitude. He says, keep your eye on him, he's going to be a player. And certainly since he and Evert's come in, again, loves his attitude, really loves the club. He's been here since, I think so 8 years old. I think he joined Bolton Wanderers, so he's been all the way through. And nothing would please me more than to see somebody like Brocky go, captain the club eventually, find a place in the team, and and complete that kind of arc. Because like you say, he's been through the hard times. But that day, the 0-0 draw against Coventry, where the Junior Whites got that result. I think that's one that will go down in the ages. I think when we're talking in 50 years' time, if I'm still around, about this era of Bolton Wanderers, I think that's one of those results that they will bring back and talk about.
So up next, Mark, you mentioned it earlier, a trip to Forest Green in front of the Sky Sports cameras. Another tough test in what's set to be a fascinating conclusion to the campaign. Some really tough games coming up.
Huge game, isn't it? I quite like Forest Green. I've got to be honest, the way that they played this season. I've always thought they probably were going up. So it will be the toughest game they've had in this run, I think. If they can go there, if you offer me a point now, I think I'd snatch it and then head back up the M5. To be honest, because it's not an easy place to go, to use the cliche, but they're a good technical team, and they won't, they'll obviously be concerned about the way Bolton play, but I think they've got their own style at home as well, which, they've been a bit more direct, for example, this season, that, they will ask a good few questions, and they will be the toughest test, I think, of Bolton Wanderers for some time.
Especially over the last 7 days or so, we've had some really good results going our way. We've had some good fortune. But the main focus, as Ian Everett keeps saying, it must be on ourselves. Don't get interfered in other results, and don't get too hyped up about the top teams losing. We've still got to focus on ourselves, and that must remain the main priority, mustn't it?
Absolutely, and it's definitely what he should be saying outwardly, but there's no way on earth that Ian Everett didn't run to teletext as soon as he got to see what the scores were. Every single player does it, always has done, whether you were JJ Okocha or whether you're Owen Doyle. When you come off that pitch, you want to know how everybody else has done when it gets to this stage of the season. Don't lose focus with it is the answer. I mean, you can't do anything about anybody else's results. That's the problem. But it's human nature, I think. Even I, for the first time this week, allowed myself a glance at the fixtures to come, and obviously looked at the games in midweek. And there's still a fair way to go, really. 10 games is quite a few. I think when it gets really down to the crunch, we can start talking about the running. I think give me another few weeks and we might start.
Yeah, and obviously Cambridge winning against Forest Green today, that sets it up nicely for Saturday, knowing that they've lost the last game and we're 12 unbeaten, so we are the form team headed into that match.
Yeah, exactly. Everything seems to kind of just be going in Bolton's favour, doesn't it? Like midweek, Walsall let a late penalty in, and I think that just dented the confidence at a perfect time. I haven't really seen much of the Cambridge Forest Green game, so I don't know how it panned out, how Forest Green played. But yeah, obviously a defeat is going to knock them a little bit. As I mentioned before, I think they are a different team at home. They are quite strong, and I do genuinely think that it will be the biggest test Bolton have had probably since that Mansfield mud bath a few weeks back. They're in form, and I think they are a team that's destined to go up this season.
So before we do call it a day, I know I gave a mention last week, but my good pal and a lad who you know very well, Paul Holliday, who obviously works at the club, has just today completed his 21-day 16k a day challenge, smashing his £2,000 target for Down syndrome charity. A massive congratulations from myself and on behalf of all Bolton Wanderers supporters worldwide. Well in, Paul, for that. Have you any more to add to that, Mark?
Yeah, I'll add to him. You can start running in a slightly easier pattern because he's put those running maps on after each one of his marathons, and I've tried to interpret it in a different way. But he keeps running the same sodding route, so I'm starting to run out of ideas now. So if he could just run his last one in a nice, easy circle, just go round and round the stadium, something like that would be nice. But no, Paul's done fantastically well. Do you know what? He's lost so much weight. He looks absolutely spot on now, which is hugely annoying for a bloke like me. It makes you seethe with jealousy, but. He does everything. He's one of life's really good people, and like I said, good things happen to good people, and good luck to him on his final one. But he'll come up with something else. He's forever raising money for good causes. He's a good chap.
So, guys, a massive thanks must go to Marc Iles for joining us tonight. We all hope you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned over the next few weeks for bonus content, including some Bolton Wanderers greats, the likes of Mark Fish, Gareth Farrelly and John McGinley all joining us. I'll leave you in the capable hands of Marc Iles, who's got if he's got a quick message for the Bolton fans heading into Saturday's game.
It feels like the Queen's speech. What's the message for Bolton Wanderers fans? Be nice. That's my message to people. Be nice. Let's enjoy it. We've had some pretty crappy times of late in the last 10 years, so let's enjoy it, and that's it. Just enjoy it. Let's coast into promotion, and then when we're all allowed to lift the glass after lockdown and we're back in the pubs, then we can properly see in League One football.
Oh, me lads, you should have seen them running. Ask them why and they replied the Bolton boys are coming. Aces. Oh, my lads, you should have seen them running. Asked them why and they replied, the Bolton boys are coming. All the lads and lasses, smiles upon their faces, walking down the Manny Road to see the Burnden Aces. Lads, you should have seen them running. Asked them why and they replied, the Bolton boys are coming. All the lads and lasses, smiles upon their faces, walking down the Manny Road to see the Burnden Aces. Oh, my lads, you should have seen them running. Asked them why and they replied, the Bolton boys are coming. All the lads and lasses, smiles upon their faces, we're walking down the Manny Road to see the Burnden Aces.